Bear with me. My microphone doesn't want to look a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so if you could just let me know if you can hear and you can see and everything looks and sounds okay today after yesterday's debacle with the live stream. I will be making sure that I've got some alternatives available should anything go wrong today. So if we do, then I'll set up a new live stream, etc., etc., etc. Phil, yeah, it was me. The microphone wasn't actually powered for some strange reason, so that should be all set up now. So if you can let me know if that looks and sounds okay. Thank you, Charlie. That's very much appreciated. Just adjusting my levels a little bit just to make sure that the voice is clear enough that everything sounds okay. There we go. Jaden, thank you very much. Does that sound okay now? Everyone happy with the vocals and everything? I think I've got a little bit of headroom there. There we go. Els, hopefully the sound should be better now. Let me know if everything sounds okay. My levels are not as high as usual, but obviously I don't want to peak. Thank you very much, Imran. And Imran, as always, you are more than welcome to join in. If you want to, just let me know and I can sort that out. Okay, so, hey, Jeffrey, how you doing, my man? Looks like all the gang's here pretty much. What if Mark's going to come in as well? Okay, so this is basically a follow-up to yesterday and the video or the live stream that myself, Jeffrey, Imran, and Mark put out with regards to criticizing WordPress. And one of the things that I kind of had back was there was a live stream then put up afterwards on the WP Minute, I think it was, with Matt and Mark. And there's a couple of points in there. Sat down and watched that this morning, as I think all of us that were on the sort of channel on the live stream yesterday did. And I've got a couple of points I want to sort of draw from there and a couple of other things that have kind of come up. But before we go any further, there's one thing I do want to address. This came up a couple of times yesterday in various different formats, was that if we're going to criticize, then we should put ourselves in a position where we as creators, content creators, go and actually contribute to WordPress. Now, contribution is something that I think most of us have probably looked at and thought that contribution just basically means you get in there and start coding. And I think the reality of it is, that's kind of come up to me anyway the last day or so, is that contribution to the WordPress project actually comes in multiple different formats. And one of those formats is that you can get involved in, if you find bugs, reporting them. If you find features that are lacking or you want feature requests and things, get involved with the GitHub side of things. So I released a video probably about an hour ago that shows anybody that would be interested in that side of things exactly how to do it. And I take that on board. And yeah, I can't say that there's anything wrong with that yet. If we want to complain about it, we do have to be involved in trying to make that change. And that change may not always come in the format of creating content like this, live streams, videos, and so on. So I take that on board, fully understand what you're saying, and I've submitted some feature requests and things and bug reports myself, and I will try my best to continue doing that. The reality is, as Imran said yesterday during the live stream, excuse me, is not always that easy because we are incredibly busy creating content like this, get involved with live streams, creating things behind the scenes for different purposes. So time is kind of the essence, but I will absolutely 100% take on board what people said yesterday and get involved in that aspect of things and submit things as and when I see them, and I think that we can advocate change. The one thing I would say is, if you haven't seen that video or you're not sure how to go about actually getting involved in GitHub and either bringing bug issues, new features, feature updates, those kinds of things, watch that video. It shows you how to do it. And the other thing I would say is that if you do start to get involved with that side of things and you submit something, share it as much as you can, whether that's sharing it on something like our Facebook group, the WP Tuts Facebook group, or Web Squadron's Facebook group, or anybody else's groups, provided they don't mind, via X or Twitter, via whatever methods you have to help raise awareness of that problem, that limitation, whatever it is. I think it's only going to be beneficial to everybody long term. And hopefully with a video like I released today, it'll show you that it doesn't necessarily have to take that long to submit something or to see if something's already been submitted and follow up with that side of things. So please do get involved from that side of things. And that's one of the things I want to sort of start this live stream off with today, because like I said, I took on board the criticisms that we had yesterday, and I can't say that I disagree with them. So from my point of view, I will try to make more strides in that direction. And also, like I say, if I submit something or I sort of thumbs up, shall we say, to sort of help maybe lift things up, I'll share those as well. So anybody that feels that frustration can also leave a comment, do the kind of things, and hopefully that will help bring about the changes that we are looking for as WordPress users. So that's what I want to sort of start off with today. In a couple of seconds, I'll go through now and I'll say a couple of welcomes to everybody. But as always, let's just quickly go through. If you've got any questions for me today, please start them with #Q for question. Just means that I can find things a little bit easier, a little bit quicker as I scan through all the comments and so on. Excuse me. I've got some notes in front of me, things that I want to address from yesterday's live stream, from Matt's follow-up live stream on the WP Minute, and some other things that have kind of come about, feedback and comments and things like that. But like I say, if you've got questions around this topic, by all means, just do #Q so I can follow up and see exactly what you guys are saying. Okay, who do we have in today? Let's go through a couple of welcomes. So, Charlie, always a pleasure to see you in. Dovebear, good to see you as well. Been a little while since you've been on here. Phil, always a pleasure. Never a chore, young man. Taylor, always a pleasure again. Imran Alam, good to see you in. Karapos, always a pleasure. We've got Max. Lovely to see you getting involved with the live streaming side of things and bringing your voice to the AI and the WordPress thing. And I do appreciate the answers that you give in your comments and your sort of feedback and things like that. They are generally very well considered, thought out. So I do appreciate that, and keep it coming. Like I say, if you've got anything that you think that myself or anybody else is maybe not doing the right way, maybe there's different ways to do it, or you've got an opinion or a thought on anything, by all means do get involved in the conversation, because the more of us that get involved, respectfully, be polite and respectful of other people's views and opinions, the more of us that get involved, the more we can kind of get a feel for what the environment is with WordPress and the surrounding things around it. And we can hopefully be able to bring voice to those kinds of concerns and things, because one of the things I want to we talked about yesterday very briefly in the four-way conversation that we had on Imran's channel, is that this is going to be something that in various different guises with different people in there as part of our sort of creator network, we are going to be doing these monthly kind of roundup live streams where there'll be several of us answering your questions, talking about topics, things that we've come across in WordPress over the last 4 weeks, things that we're excited about, all those kinds of things. We want to have this something moving forward, that we have this monthly live stream that allows us to talk about the things we're excited about, things we're frustrated about, get your feedback. And the more you get involved in the community, whether that's the Facebook community, whether that's the comments on the videos, whether it's the community on WordPress, on Twitter, whatever format it is, talk about things and tag me in there, get involved in the conversation, because it means that it opens up more avenues for us to be able to bring maybe your concerns, frustrations, and so on to the forefront, and maybe be able to vocalize those to more people than you get the ability or sort of the avenues to be able to do that yourself. So be part of the community and be involved in it. Anyway, Damien, good to see you in. TJ, good to see you in. Jaden, was a pleasure. Jennifer, Dan, Goran, Els, good to see you in. Dan Stanley, we've got you in. We've got Imran in, always a pleasure. Jeffrey from Lightbox, Ground Pets, K9 Striker, Isaac, always a pleasure. How you doing? Stephen, there we go. Awesome. So we've got quite a few in. Mark, always a pleasure. Again, thanks for being involved. Thanks for being part of the community, for voicing and talking about different things, because I think it's invaluable that we can share the different points of view. We can ask questions. I found some of the questions you were asking Matt today in my catching up on your live stream kind of opened my eyes to a few things, and thought actually you were on the same page as me, and I know others. It's all good. And if you ever want to come on a live stream and be part of this, just hit me up, and I'm sure we can get something sorted out, get in the diary, and jump on here and get involved in this live stream as well. Faberon, good to see you. Thank you very much. OGC Digital, Paddy One, Courtney, MB. What's the subject today? The subject is, well, there's multiple subjects, but it's fundamentally going around what we talked about yesterday in the live stream, what I did in the video last week about criticizing aspects of WordPress and how we can help maybe shape the things that we've got, and also some of the things that were sort of brought up in Matt and Mark's live stream that I watched today, and other comments and things that have come about from our live stream yesterday and from the video I released last week about the UI and the UX when it comes to WordPress. So anybody that's just joined in, remember, if you want to do #Q for question, just to be able to allow me to quickly and easily scan through and see what questions are out there. Keys, thank you very much for joining in. Good to see you in the conversation yesterday as well. Okay, so we've already covered off what I wanted to start off with, which, like I say, was taking on board some of the criticism and putting something out there to help anybody that wants to get involved in giving feedback to WordPress how to do it. Watch today's video. It's literally a couple of minutes long, and it'll help you if you're undecided or unsure how it all works. Okay, so I've got some notes in front of me, so you're going to have to bear with me as I kind of scan through these different bits and pieces, because I haven't put these in any particular order, but I wanted to address these different things. Now, first of all, one of the things I want to say is that the video that kind of sparked part of the debate that's been going on over the last week or so, not just my video, there's other things that have been brought out as well by other people. But part of what I wanted to address is that it's kind of grown beyond what I originally talked about. My frustrations were with the UI and the UX decisions being made, and I sort of pulled up quite a few different examples of how that is frustrating for new users, but also for existing users. But it's interesting to see how the conversation has grown way beyond those initial criticisms that I think were fully justified. And as I said at the time, I didn't just give a criticism of something, I also gave how it could be solved, which I think is just as valuable as the criticism or the, I'm talking constructive criticism, not just going, oh, that bit's rubbish or whatever. It's because, well, this doesn't work in a very good way. How about this is a way we could look at solving it? Oh, excuse me. I haven't long had my lunch, and I think it isn't agreeing with my conversation today. So I wanted to sort of say that it's surprising how the conversation has gone much, much broader over the last week or so. So it started off with quite a simple thing, but I think it's grown considerably. Okay, I got Elle's question here. I didn't understand. You go into GitHub, you go to all community, make WP, and choose to contribute to design. This is one of the confusing aspects of the whole thing, and one of the things I want to draw attention to is that I chose GitHub because that's apparently where a lot of those kind of things go for your bug sort of reporting and so on and so forth. But one of the things that kind of came up in the conversation with Matt and Mark today was very much how it is incredibly confusing for anybody that's outside of this setup to be able to realize where they've got to go to make bug reports, to talk about feature requests and things like that. Because you've got GitHub, which is what I showed in the video. You've also got, on top of that, you've got Slack, which is another method of getting in touch. And then you've also got Track, which is part of the WordPress.org website, but that's a legacy set of options. But theme developers and things still use that to track bugs and talk about issues and things, but then that feeds into GitHub. Now, all this, again, is just layers of confusion, I think, and this is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people don't know, A, where to go to deal with it, but also, B, get frustrated if they put something in some place and it's actually no one pays any attention to it. Is it because no one's interested? Is it because no one's seeing it? Or is it because it's in the wrong place? There's all layers of confusion that I don't think make, talking about these things particularly easy or straightforward. Yeah, so there's one thing. For me, it kind of feels like a bit of a disjointed mess, which I suppose you could kind of say mirrors the dashboard of WordPress at this point in time. Yeah. Okay. So we'll come back to that in a moment. Max is asking a question. So what are your thoughts on implementing a simple mode for clients and content updates alongside an advanced mode that provides access to all settings, including numerous theme.json options and so on? I think this kind of feeds into my comment and my sort of criticism of feedback about something as simple as, I know I say the typography settings and the three dots kind of thing. And I know it's not limited to just that, but I think if you have some way of keeping the simple for the people that don't need to have those extra features. So, for example, there's someone that just literally wants to go in there, write a blog post, and doesn't care. They just want to just type it in and let the theme or whatever it is control the design aspect of it. Yeah, great. Have that option there. But as I said in the video last week, the problem you've got is you've just got confusion coming in there. It's like the simplicity they try to bring in has made things more difficult, more complex, because now you have to dig around to find things. So I think, yeah, if we had an advanced mode, or at least have something, as was brought up in Matt and Mark's video today, another way of doing it would be that you can go into the settings section, which again is something that I highlighted, and have an option there just to turn on the options that you want. Have that option set up there so you can easily choose the basic or advanced, which basically just switches everything or nothing on, as it were. And then you have different layers of that where it goes, okay, now let's have a granular level of control that says, I don't care about these things, but I care about these things. In the same way that you can do this with the blocks that you've got inside Gutenberg itself, you can go into the settings section and you can enable or disable groups of blocks or individual blocks. Why not have exactly the same kind of process for having that for the options that are available inside Gutenberg? Like you say, a global, basic, advanced, and granular control to customize it, which could be customized on a user role basis or individual user basis. Or to start off with, why not just have a basic and advanced and then expand upon that later as needed? But I think the one-size-fits-all methodology that's currently being employed by Gutenberg and core to a certain extent, I don't think it works. I really don't think it works. I think you alienate the people that want more, and you make it so incredibly simple to basic users. But you're alienating the more advanced users by making it more complex, that they have to go in and do stupid things like click the three dots to access those options, and then those options are gone once they finish with that page or post. It seems crazy. And again, this is one of those things that this wasn't a criticism of anybody in particular in my video. It was a criticism of the overall choices that have been made, and the fact that from a basic UI and UX sort of like 101 standpoint, I can't see why there's nobody there or people there that are going like, that really shouldn't be the only way of working. There should be more options. It should be a case of, at least when they enable those functions, they're consistent. Do you know, and maybe even right at the beginning when you actually fire up Gutenberg for the first time, that stupid little sort of pop-up thing that does no value to anybody, why not make that something that says, what level of user are you? Do you want to have these options available, or do you want to keep it super simple? And then you can go through like a simple couple of step wizard, and all you've got to do then is choose basic, advanced. If you want advanced, you can say, do you want granular control? Choose the options that you want. All still available in the settings, so you can go back retrospectively and change anything if you want to. But then the onboarding wizard for Gutenberg becomes a useful thing, not a hindrance like it currently is. It does nothing other than make you have to do a couple of clicks to get rid of it. Make it useful. I can't see how any of this is rocket science. And this kind of leads me on to one of the other points that was raised in Matt and Mark's video today, was that things don't happen quickly when you've got a project of this size. And I think most of us with any common sense would totally appreciate that. But what do you consider quickly? I mean, I would consider Gutenberg being in development for 6 years the epitome of not being quickly. So you kind of think, well, surely there's got to be some level of, let's make the one thing useful. Let's take Gutenberg, for example, and forget about full-site editing, phase 2 and then phase 3 and 4. Surely it would have made so much more sense to say, well, let's get Gutenberg fully featured, listen to the feedback, listen to the sort of the community, the things that are missing, the things that are wanted, and so on. And once that's at a position where it's now an MVP, then you say, right, now we'll move on to full-site editing. And we'll still, deal with Gutenberg as we go along, but we've got most of what everybody needs in there. And I kind of feel like, and I could be wrong, and like I say, again, if you think I'm wrong, by all means do challenge me. They took so long, and they're still taking so long with Gutenberg. We'll call it Gutenberg because the plugin is still technically separate to what you get inside WordPress itself. Surely it's not that difficult to implement a lot of these features. This is the thing that kind of frustrates me with the conversation. We go like, but things don't happen quickly. You don't almost like when you've got a company that's got 2,000 employees and so on. No, we probably don't. But when you kind of consider that we're not talking about necessarily sweeping changes, we're talking about a toggle that enables or disables features. We're talking about consistency of design between the different aspects of the WordPress dashboard, full-site editing, traditional dashboard, Gutenberg. You can't tell me that you couldn't separate 4 or 5 people and say, right, create a consistent design for this environment. And that's something that really should have been done right back when Gutenberg was a baby product, and not 6 years down the line, and it's still a totally disjointed mess. So I'm not applying criticism where I don't think it's unwarranted. And I'm not saying you have to take on board what I'm saying. But if you want people to adopt your product, compare it to the likes of Wix and Squarespace and Webflow. Yes, they're all different levels. I get the total sort of disconnect between those. But at least with those tools, you have a consistent appearance across all of the dashboards, all of the sort of sections that you go into. Whereas what I highlighted in the video I released last week is even when you click in the back button inside full site editing, it doesn't take you to the previous screen. It takes you somewhere different. These are all things that, from a user point of view, they should have someone in, automatic that is fundamentally focusing on the user experience and the user interface in the same way they've got people involved in accessibility. You've got groups of people that are focused fundamentally and primarily on making WordPress as accessible as possible. To what level of extent, I don't know. But if you're literally going to go, we're going to develop all these things, but full site editing is going to look different to Gutenberg, which is going to look different to the legacy WordPress dashboard. You don't have to bring new features. You can literally just reskin the design to bring consistency across the board. And for me, that's one of the biggest frustrations. And using it doesn't happen quickly, it's a cop-out. It's a get out of jail free card. How long is too long before you make changes? Excuse me. Okay. Bear with me. I'm going to cough a second, and I don't want to deafen you. But as always, what are your thoughts on this? Let me know. And I'm going to see I've got a couple of questions here, so I'm going to just do the queue a second. Can you do a hashtag in queue, though, if you wouldn't mind, when it comes to a question? Just makes it a little bit easier to be able to see exactly what you're asking. Oh, that's the wrong one. Shift Q. Okay. Let's have a little look. Max, I think I answered that question. Yeah, exactly. The advanced option would work great. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think any of these things are particularly difficult to implement. They are just literally enable, disable toggles that save something into the settings for that individual user. You've got all those things. All you need to do is go into your profile inside WordPress and you can select different options and they're saved to the settings that are associated with your account. Where would the real difficulty be with doing something similar with the settings that you choose inside the Gutenberg editor or full site editing and so on that keeps that consistent experience across the board? And I think that's the thing that I find probably the most difficult to deal with is the frustration that these things are not that difficult. Most of them are, I would say, already implemented in parts of WordPress. So I can't see why they would be that difficult to implement other places. And the consistency of design side of things, that's literally CSS, maybe some JavaScript. I'm not asking to change the actual physical functionality at this point. Sure, that's going to have bigger knock-on effects. But to literally reskin the design. And then there's the other sort of thing of like, oh, but these could be breaking features. But surely bringing full site editing and Gutenberg into WordPress core could be breaking features. Surely there's more chance of those breaking WordPress than there is of changing the design side of things of the dashboard of WordPress without including any additional functionality. I mean, I might be wrong on that one. I'm no WordPress designer and coder kind of thing. So if I'm wrong on that, please do let me know, but I can't see why. Yeah, it's a good question, Isaac. I don't know. There's oxymorons going on all over the place when it comes to this side of things. Okay. What do we have here? Would it be a good step for WordPress to acquire Bricks and make it the native builder for WordPress? I feel like there are already good solutions out there that do the job. I wouldn't say Bricks would be the best solution, but I think, and I've said this since Gutenberg was even sort of a thing, I can't see why they didn't look at what solutions were already created, or at least teams behind creating great solutions for building on top of WordPress and incorporate that somewhere along the lines as opposed to trying to start from scratch. For whatever the reason is, whatever the decisions were made and why they were made the way they were, we're 6 years in and there are already products out there. I mean, you've only got to look at the fact, if you look, there was a poll, there's a market share graph put up recently on the Juice blog, and it shows the uptake for core Gutenberg kind of thing as literally flatlined right at the bottom in comparison to a lot of the other things. And you've only got to look at the number of actual active installs on the WordPress repo of Gutenberg itself. And I know you can say, well, Gutenberg is installed as part of WordPress, but there is a difference between Gutenberg plugin and Gutenberg core. Gutenberg plugin generally tends to be sort of further along in the development cycle, so newer features come to that before they are brought into, Gutenberg inside core. Look at the uptake on there. I think, if I remember rightly, someone quoted is 200,000. 200,000. Now compare the fact that WordPress powers 40+% of the internet. There's surely more than 200,000 sites there. So you kind of have to think, well, if adoption is that bad, and WP Tonic in the thread yesterday, in the live stream yesterday, was very vocal about how the Gutenberg project is a failure. And, you have to take that for what it's worth. I don't know. Is it a failure? I think it's something that people didn't ask for, and lots of people still don't want. And that's why you've got the likes of page builders that sit on top of WordPress. You've got block plugins like Generate Blocks and so on that sit on top of, core Gutenberg kind of things. You've got other ones then like Quickly, for example, and GreenShift that kind of sit and work inside the ethos of Gutenberg itself, but it's still an abstraction layer, still something put on top. Well, why are these tools so popular in comparison to the likes of Gutenberg itself? Why? Because they do the job better. And that's the statistics back that up. There are more people using Elementor, Bricks, Divi, going down things like Generate Blocks, I should say, sorry, Generate Press, GreenShift, Quickly, and so on. Combine all those tools together and compare that to the 200,000 installs of sort of Gutenberg core plugin. It kind of tells you something. People are not adopting it because it's confusing for a lot of people. When you want to go beyond the basics, that's when you're going to get into coding side of things. I mean, you're only going to look at what Brian Cordes did with the sort of head-to-head with Kevin Geary. The totally different approaches, delving into the JSON file to set things up inside there. That in itself is something that if you want to make WordPress simpler, you've added and made it more complex by making it too simple to be able to do anything more than the basics. So if they want to keep it as a blogging platform, then keep it as that. It just feels like WordPress is at this point where it doesn't really know, does it want to be a fully featured platform which you can build your site on, you can design it, add your content and all those kinds of things? So in other words, it's a page builder, and people argue, oh, it's not a page builder. But if you want to create templates for your headers, your footers, your content, your archives, and all those kinds of things, and you want to allow them to be able to build the content outside then using patterns and so on, which are mini templates, surely that's the definition of what a page builder is. That's exactly what Elementor is doing and Bricks is doing and so on. But I don't know. It just kind of feels like they don't really know what they're trying to be. You have to excuse me. I'm kind of getting over a bit of a cold, so the talking dries my throat. Okay, what else do we have? Imran, do you think WordPress could add an easy mode and a hardcore mode? Well, this is kind of what I said earlier on in response to, Max's comment. So I think it's the same kind of thing. And yes, I do think they should do that. And I also, like I say, I think when you open up Gutenberg, for example, for the first time, I think that's a perfect opportunity to be able to allow a simple onboarding wizard that allows you to set up and configure what you want. But also to have those options to be able to, when you spin up a site, you can have those options preset. So you can spin up a sort of template site, like a blueprint site, for example. All those options are set, so you don't have to go through that boring process of answering those same questions time and time again. Kind of get the idea. Okay, so if you're enjoying today's conversation, please do give that thumbs up a little tickle because, well, it tells YouTube that you enjoy this kind of content, and it'll make me happy. So if you could do that, that would be absolutely awesome. Okay, let's catch up with some of the things we're talking about. Let me just go and take a look at the conversations going on. Okay, another big problem I find in WordPress is the sheer amount of stuff that needs to be disabled, taking valuable time. Again, like I say, Diego, I think this is where if you've got a blueprint site and you can save those settings, for example, like I say, inside Gutenberg and so on, and the settings you have in different parts for full site editing, if you so desire that, this is where a blueprint site really does make your life a lot easier. And if you take a look on the channel, if you've never seen a blueprint site, I've got a video dedicated to how I set mine up. It's using Bricks, but the principle behind it is exactly the same, whatever tool or tools you decide to use. But that, to me, is one of those key things that when you want to spin up a site with all the basic settings, like you say, different options, enable, disable, and so on. A blueprint site is an absolute godsend for dealing with things like that. Okay. Right, let's have a little look. What else did I have on you? So there was a comment that came up on Matt and Mark's live stream yesterday, which, if I'm going to be honest, really pissed me off because it totally undermines the relevance and the validity of people like myself, Imran, Jeffrey, anybody else that's in the creator space. I'm not going to name names who said it, and I'm not going to, I've got no beef with this person. I've talked to them in the past, and they're actually genuinely nice, strong opinions, which is perfectly fine. But this was, in the past 2 days, I'm seeing loads of pods, in the words podcasts, comments around complaining about WordPress. I often complain about it too, but it seems a particular page builder advocates are kind of doing it. I don't see any way in the conversation that we had yesterday, or in the conversation that we had that I used in the UI UX video from last week, where any of us have said, this is why you should absolutely use a page builder like Elementor or Bricks. No way have we said that I believe anyway. Unless I'm wrong, at which point I do apologize. But nothing that we were saying there was to say that you shouldn't use Gutenberg, you should use this other tool or these other tools. The parallels we're drawing and the reasons we're sort of saying about these different things is because the frustrations that not just people like us feel, but we're in our communities. There's 14,000 people in the community on WP Tuts. Imran's got thousands. You've got loads of different communities that we're all involved in, and you see similar responses and frustrations across the board. All we are doing is bringing those to light. Now, I say Gutenberg. I use a kind of hybrid between Gutenberg core kind of thing and generate blocks. In pretty much every post that I put together on Learn Bricks Builder, WP Tuts, any of the sites that I've got, I don't use any page builder to build out the actual post content. All that is done inside Gutenberg itself. So I'm in and out of that editor every single day. I create content, edit content, and so on. So the frustrations that I talk about are not things that are being born out of just ignorance and going like, I just want to voice this being frustrated, or that's a bag of crap or whatever. These are my experiences, and I will talk about my experiences, and I will listen to what the community says, and I will voice those frustrations because they mirror exactly what I find frustrating. I've looked at full-site editing multiple times, and the last time that I got even remotely interested in full-site editing and looking at it in real detail was when the free Ollie theme was released, because I really liked what was being done there. Excuse me. And it still goes in there, and it's like, I still can't stand it. It still feels terrible. It's just badly designed. Look at the menu structure, how you build menus in there. It feels really taking steps backwards. So am I criticizing because I want to be critical, or am I criticizing because it's frustrating? Because instead of advancing the project and making it better, it feels like you've actually taken a step back and you've made things more difficult. Again, going back to that, you've tried to oversimplify things, and by oversimplification, you made things more difficult, more complex, more frustrating. Insert whatever adjective you want there. These are all things that happen. These are all things that are frustrating to a user. Why wouldn't you say that? Professional agency freelancer setting Gutenberg is usable. You should use a page builder if you're doing client work. I don't say it because I think it's entirely up to the end user. I would love to be in a position, and there's kind of like this intermediary position where you've got tools like Gutenberg, for example, which allows you to create blocks or patterns, I should say, inside bricks, which you can then use inside the normal Gutenberg editor, and you can have control over those different aspects. There's this argument, this discussion, this sort of differing opinion of, if you're working with clients, should you give them full access to the dashboard of WordPress and all that brings with it? So whether you're using a page builder like Bricks, do you give them, access to that? Do you only give them access to Gutenberg, or do you create some kind of a hybrid? And some people will say, like, well, I sort of create a dashboard that uses advanced custom fields in the classic editor, and they don't have access to anything else. And, that may work for some clients, but I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. I tend to give my clients access, but most of the time they'll come to me to make changes, which is fine. because they have no real interest in it. In the same way, I probably got no interest in their business. I don't want to get underneath the car and change the oil. I'd rather take it to a mechanic and have it done for me because I've got no interest in that, and other people can do it better. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that approach. It's entirely up to you. I don't think Gutenberg is in a position right now, in the state that it's in, because, so to jump around a little bit here, if you look at where Gutenberg is now with the advent of bringing in 6.6 now, so this is WordPress 6.6, bringing in things like a not necessarily a good way of working with CSS grid, using different naming conventions to standards, all those kinds of things. So you've got these more complicated tools, and I think using things like groups and all the different kind of terminologies being used there. I think Gutenberg, with the blocks that are there, I don't think it's particularly easy to use for most users. When you start looking at people that are really accustomed to working with this, and you see that how they build things, it looks, excuse me, it doesn't look that dissimilar to what you're doing inside tools like Elementor and so on. A lot of the same functionalities there, just isn't done as well. Anyway, okay. Diego. Oh, bloody ass cough. Look, I think this is an inherent problem. If you want to one day migrate from bricks to another page builder, you're screwed because the content is saved in JSON files. This is one of those things that kind of comes up a lot. It's like if you move from this to this, then your data is XYZ. Unfortunately, this is the limitation. If you want to bypass that as much as possible, the only way you're going to do it is by sticking solely 100% to WordPress core. And if you want to then move from WordPress to something else, you're going to have that exact same issue. So, websites don't last forever. There's always going to be some sense of building with technology that makes sense now. Future-proof as much as you can. But at some point, something is going to be legacy and obsolete, at which point you have to make some change there, whether it's going to a different system, whether it's different page builder, whether it's going from WordPress to Webflow to Wix to whatever. The only way you're ever going to bypass that is by hand coding the site yourself, where you've got full control over content, design, and structure. And there's nothing involved in it that is not standard, simple HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be the problem, when you want to move from one system to another. Oh, excuse me. I know people dislike it, but I still believe Brizy has succeeded in many aspects of designing a simple interface. Funnily enough, I was talking to a friend today via Twitter, X, about Brizy and Brizy Cloud and so on, and the interface that kind of goes with it. I like the Brizy interface. I like what Brizy brought to the table in certain respects. The problem I have now, though, is that because Brizy has gone beyond what it was, let's say, 3 years ago, that the interface is not scaling that well in certain aspects. I mean, to give an example that's always frustrated me with Brizy is when you want to change the alignment of the text on an element, you've literally got to click through the different alignment options. So your left, your center, your right, your justified, and so on. Whereas for me, if you look at like a lot of applications you have on a computer, you'd normally sort of have a little floating toolbar. You click and hold it down, and then you'd have a little drop down that would have the 4 options, and you just scroll over, choose the one you want, job done. There's little things like that I kind of felt that the interface when it was originally released, where it didn't have as many options, was great. But as it's scaled, I think it's highlighted some of the shortcomings you have with the way the interface has been implemented. But I think Brizy itself, it's a shame that the product hasn't been picked up better than it has. And I think, again, it's something we was talking about earlier on, I think the strength of Brizy these days is Brizy Cloud. I know it's not a perfect platform, but I think it is a good way of taking WordPress out of the equation and having the beauty of being able to work with a nice clean interface, in general, what you have with Brizy, and having everything working together. It's not seamless, it's not perfect, but I think that's where their strength lies, and I think it's a shame that it hasn't actually gone further than where it has right now. Okay. Of migrating difficulties, is there any automated way to migrate ACF custom post types, taxonomies, etc. to Jet Engine? Not that I know of, because they're going to store their information slightly differently. So I can't see there'll be a simple way of being able to migrate that data from one of those platforms to another. But I would never say never. You may take a look at like what's it called? What's the one from SoFly? Whatever their one is, that might be able to do it. But I haven't come across anything that would do it that simple and straightforward. So no, I don't think so. Max, yes, it's not perfect and only suitable for basic tasks. They're slow to embrace new features. I think that's been one of the struggles when it comes to Brizy, is that it has been very, very slow to release updates. And I mean, how long has it been going now? 6 years, 5, 6 years, maybe longer than that. And I don't see there's been huge strides in that time. There's been certain bits and pieces. But again, I think they're probably tied into what you can do from the WordPress side of things. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, WP All Import. Try that one. Have a look at that K9 Striker. See if that has the options. Obviously, don't buy it. Talk, see if they can actually do it first of all. Maybe contact their tech support. Yeah, Max, I think you're right. It would be one of those things. It's a shame that it hasn't actually speeded up in development and been a little bit more sort of forward thinking and forward planning. But it's kind of been like a lot of the time it's been very slow to release new features. And I think that's probably frustrated a lot of people. This is probably the difficulty when it comes to it. It's like you can be too fast releasing features and that annoys people. You can be too slow releasing features that annoys people. I think it's like the Goldilocks approach. Is like, where's the middle ground that makes everybody happy? Probably isn't one. What's your thoughts on Bricks adding CSS, JS, HTML soon to be? Do I think they're going to do it, or what are my thoughts on them actually adding that in? If you want to clarify that, that'd be awesome, and I'll see if I can answer that one. Okay, Chris, here's a thought. Each one of you, in your YouTube WordPress scene, create a video that highlights at least 3 main issues you want to see fixed in WordPress. Just 3? Yeah, I don't mind. I'm up for that. If Imran's up for that, I'm sure Kevin would be up for that. Always happy to see that. And also raise them on GitHub. Yeah, that's fine. That's cool. I don't mind. I think limiting to 3 would be quite difficult, but anyway. Okay, one of my other points I want to sort of do. So this is one of those kind of points that was brought up again in yesterday's stream, which was Matt made a comment about the difference between the scale of someone like Crockablock and WordPress releasing new features. To give it some context, Mark has done some work with Crockablock, said there was a sort of an issue, a little feature that would have made sense, contacted Crockablock, and they implemented that quite quickly. Now, this, again, is probably the Goldilocks scenario, and it was probably one of those things that maybe wasn't such an issue that was quite easy to implement. But whether you've got 100,000 users or 100 million users, if you make a breaking change, it's a breaking change. I don't see there's a difference between the two, because you can immediately lose market share and everything else that goes with it by simply cocking things up and making a problem to, excuse me, between those sort of two things. So I think we need to be mindful that once you've got paying customers, no company can afford to have breaking changes released. It's not a case of go, there's only 100,000 people here. They'd be fine. They're going to notice it anyway. And it's different with WordPress. It's the same across the board. It all ultimately ends up losing you clients or customers if you do things like that too often, So if anybody's got any questions, I'm mindful we've got about 10 minutes or so left. If you want to do #Q4question, that would be awesome. If you enjoy the live stream and you're getting value out of what I'm doing here, talking about the different things, hit that thumbs up button. It just lets YouTube know that you like this kind of comment. So please do. The new release of Bricks 1.10. To be honest, I only quickly looked over it. I haven't dug into it that much. And I know what we talk about now. You've got 3 different sort of like, we could say it's sort of like code snippet boxes that apply to the page kind of thing. I think it makes sense. Everything you can kind of do, and within reason. You can't incorporate everything. But I think when you've got little things that rely upon another plugin or making changes manually, that you can build into the builder that makes sense, then I think it makes sense, as it were. So I think it's probably a good thing. We'll have to wait and see and let it develop and see how uptake is with it and everything like that. But I think it's quite useful. Toby, what do I think about quickly coming back? I've got a lot of respect for what Louis done with Quickly. The problem is, I think he's got a very difficult road ahead of him to win back the hearts and the minds of the people that adopted it quite early. You've got people that are like myself. I bought the LTD when it was on AppSumo, and I think it lasted there like one day and it was gone. I know it came back very briefly, but that was a bit of a weird one. But as it was, I bought that then. So I kind of invested it right back at the beginning when it was literally, a sort of real fledgling product. And I've watched it grow, and I've done a video on it when I first bought it, gave feedback, and fair play. Louis listened to the different kind of comments. They went back and they adjusted the interface and so on based upon some of the feedback that I'd given in that video and the comments people put into the comment section and so on. And what they were doing and what they've done with that builder, it's got a steep learning curve, and there's no two ways about that. But it was innovative. So when they kind of stopped development and put at the end of life, I think that shocked an awful lot of people. And the problem they've got now is those early adopters that put time, money, and effort into it, and also built websites for clients who are part of the way through projects and so on, they had the rug pulled out from underneath them. And I know that there's technical support and bug fixes and so on up until some point in 2025. But let's be honest about it. That doesn't matter. If you've built a project for a client and then you go, okay, I literally just finished this at the end of 2023, and now support for this is going to go on till some part of 2025. I can't remember exactly what it was. If you consider like the lifespan of a typical business website, maybe 3 to 4 years, well, let's cut that in half at least. That puts you in a very difficult position as a provider to a client. So that is difficult. And that will immediately erode trust in your business model if you don't absorb that in some way. Now, I've done this kind of thing in the past myself where I bought things, and going back years ago, where I bought things on like ThemeForest, for example, and then you find you go back to get an update or to see if there's a bug fix or something, to something that's not working properly, and you realize that's actually been pulled from ThemeForest, and then you're in a shit position. I've gone and rebuilt people's websites using different technology without them knowing anything about it, built it to look exactly the same at my own expense. And I would imagine there's probably a lot of people have done that when Quickly did what it did. Coming back, opening up to be a free product, maybe a good thing. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But I think they've got a difficult road ahead for the next few months where you're going to have very vocal proponents of frustrated previous buyers and users. You're going to have people that are sort of like sitting in the middle where they have no strong feeling one way or the other. They may have bought it, shelved it to let it mature, and then take a look at it afterwards. Like, it was an investment that I kind of lost on. Well, not the end of the world. And then you're going to have new people that will come on board because it's a free product. They'll hear some of the hype about what it can do. Maybe the Tailwind integration and all the features they've got there. And they will buy into it, as it were. If enough of those adopt that and take it on board and run with it, then I think it's got a chance to grow. But the problem you've got is anybody with a memory longer than 5 minutes that knows about how the rug was pulled will have that in the back of their mind and will be really concerned about putting their business into a product that was end-of-lifed previously and then came back and made free and so on. That's what I think anyway. So hopefully that answers your question, Toby. Max. Yes, but with Quickly being open source, it can be taken over and contributed to, or taken over if you have the capability. Maybe AI will help down the road with that, plus WP repo possibly. Yes, making it open source does open up the potential for, being taken over, and maybe that's what they're looking for. However, I question whether that's a model that Louis would be comfortable with, knowing that he was the only developer and still is, and whether he wants other people to be able to create their own versions of Quickly. I don't know. I don't know where that's going to kind of go with it. like I say, for me, it's a case of the next couple of months are going to be interesting to see what happens, if there's adoption of it, because it's become a free model, what direction that takes. I know that they're talking about, bringing wireframes and things into it, and things that they'll charge for there, which from my understanding, and this is a bit of a gray area because it was kind of like, it wasn't that clear during the live stream that we did the other day. There's talk of it being free to people that bought the lifetime deal, but then there was kind of like other comments that kind of tripped that up a little bit. So I'm not really sure if, as a lifetime deal owner, someone that's put money into it, that we would have all those things for free moving forward, or what. I don't really know. But yeah, I mean, like Max, I think we've got to wait and see, and we've got to see what happens with it, and how it kind of goes forward in the next couple of months, and how that sort of shows itself up. It'll be interesting to find out what's going to happen there. But I do wish Louis all the best. Like I say, I don't think, for whatever the reasons were, that they decided to call it a day on there. And I know what's been said out there, and I know people sort of go, "Oh, I don't believe it. That can't be true." Blah blah blah. There's been no evidence. We don't know what's gone on. We don't know the kind of things that have happened in the background. And I think, we can make speculations and things, but I think we also have to be mindful of the fact, like, they made the decisions they did. They've got to kind of live with the consequences, but I don't think we should ever make any kind of attacks towards people or anything like that, or advocate attacks towards people. I think it's wrong. Whether that happened or not, I have no idea. But that's kind of what was said. Okay, do we have any other questions? So look, MaxiBlocks also offers that model. The blocks are free, but the designs patterns cost money. It's a business model, I think, that probably it works well in some cases. It all depends on the quality of those designs, those patterns, and so on. I mean, it's basically the business model that Ollie is doing with Ollie Pro, which is a full-site editing theme. You get the same, I believe anyway, you get the same theme, but effectively what you're buying is those professional pattern designs and so on, those kinds of things go with it. So you can speed up your design process, by using those patterns and so on. So yeah, MaxiBlocks has kind of worked on that side of things. And I'm sure it's a business model that will kind of take off, because if you consider looking at like the Bricks environment at the moment, one of the big things there is less about plugins being released. I mean, there are plugins being released for Bricks, but there's also an awful lot of, I can't call them patterns, but let's just say block sets, things like Brixies, things like frames, for example, things like Bricks Maven and so on. You see a lot more of these coming out and expanding and growing. So it's interesting. And maybe that's one of those things that people are buying into a lifetime deal with a product, and that product is kind of pretty fully featured. So the natural approach would be like, well, let's make the process of designing websites and taking typical design layouts and so on, make that side of things quicker and easier. I think we're going to see more of that over the next year, 18 months, and maybe further on beyond that. Probably because a lot of people are a little bit worried about building plugins around something like Bricks or Divi or those kinds of things for various different reasons. Sparkash, try to generate cloud yet? Looking for best practices with it, example, offering patterns to clients. I haven't, because I'm a little bit bummed that I literally, by accident, ended up buying the lifetime deal to GeneratePress. Let's just say I had two tabs open. One tab was seeing how much the lifetime deal was. The other tab was the one to renew my annual subscription, and it defaulted to the lifetime. And I thought, I can't be bothered to go and contact support. Support's been brilliant with them. But so for me to sort of buy it to Generate Cloud or Generate One, as it's kind of called, would end up being more expensive, I believe, than what I'm using at the moment, which would be just buying the annual for Generate Blocks. But we'll see. In the future, I might try it out. I like the idea. Again, it's one of those things that I don't think is new technology, have this sort of cloud sort of hub and can kind of be useful, but I haven't tried it to be able to give an opinion on it, sorry. Toby, do you know when Bricks 2.0 will come out? Have you heard anything about this? I think it'll come out when it's ready, and that's not to be a sort of like smart-ass answer. I think it's a case of Thomas is going to release it when whatever the big feature or features that need to come out in version 2, whether that's the components or whatever, when that's ready and all the things they want to sort of wrap up to tie up to make it a kind of like finishing off where version 1.x kind of ends itself and then 2.0 starts, I think that's where we're going to sort of see a timescale. I have no idea. I think it's going to be a case, it is going to be when it's ready, and that's when we'll see it. Which, from my point of view, I'm more than happy with that, because I would rather the product be solid, so when it is released, we don't have many worries. There's always going to be bugs and things in there because you can't test for every scenario. But it'll be interesting to see what they bring to it, because I can't see, other than components, what is really missing. And I'm talking big feature missing, not little sort of enhancements or tweaks or things that are. It'd be interesting to sort of see, well, what are they going to bring to the table? Is components going to be the big feature that is version 2.0? I don't know. Be interesting to find out what's going to happen. Yeah. Okay, so we've got 5 more minutes. If anybody's got any questions finally for me, by all means do. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up today's live stream. I think I covered most of the topics I wanted to cover in this. Remember, if you do want to get involved with, WordPress itself, if you find features that you want enhanced, added, bugs you find you want quashed and so on, check out the video released today to sort of show you how you can do it. And there's probably multiple different ways you can do it. This is just one approach and one you may want to sort of take a look at. But it's not as complicated as it may first look. But GitHub, if you ask me, is not the most user-friendly interface. And we'll probably scare off an awful lot of people that don't feel comfortable getting in it or knowing where they've got to go to submit those kinds of things. So please do hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed the live stream today, because it does mean that YouTube will actually maybe put this out to more people. If you're watching this on catch-up, watching it after the live stream is finished, by all means, leave your comments. I'll come back and forth and check those out and answer the ones that I think are, need to be answered and so on. But I'd love to get your feedback on everything I've covered today, anything I've covered in the live stream yesterday with Imran, Mark, and Jeffrey. By all means, jump over there, comment on that, and everything else, let me know. One last question, Toby. Will you consider launching full paid courses, A to Z kind of stuff? No, not at this point in time. Mainly because there's so much work involved in creating a fully featured A through to Z course that you kind of have to, you invest so much time in it and you don't necessarily make the money back on it because you have to charge so much to make it viable. And then when you take a look at the whole, what do you call it? I can't think of it. Well, you basically make the different prices in different parts of the world. I can't think of the parity pricing. That's the word I'm looking for. It generally doesn't sort of balance out to make it more sense. So what I'll be doing with my courses, I'll be doing micro courses or mini courses, which may be an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours long, that'll focus on a specific thing, like a project, for example. I'm working on one that'll be dynamic data for bricks, which will fundamentally not focus on design because that just kind of wastes a lot of time. I'll be using things like Brixies to speed that side of things up. But I'll be showing you how to build, for example, like a real estate website. So you'll have filtering, searching, facets, you'll have dynamic data, you'll have relationships, all those kinds of things. So it'll show you, for example, how you could build a project and the different parts that are part of it, as opposed to going, right, this is how you use feature X, this is how you use feature Y, Z, and so on. So that's the way that I will be looking at my courses. That means I can make them a little shorter, a little bit more punchy, and not charge the same level that I would have to for a much bigger, longer course. So hopefully that answers that question, Toby. Finally, Max, Paul, may I say I appreciate your commitment to addressing the drama directly and head on. Not a problem at all, Max. Like I say, it's one of those things that I think there's nothing wrong with differing opinions. There's nothing wrong with having a conversation, opening up discourse. And whether that's on the same stream, whether that sparks conversation in other streams. Like I say, I watch Matt and Mark's stream today, had a bunch of comments that I've talked about today. But again, we all have our different perspectives. I see it from one point of view. Matt's going to see it from a different point of view from his background, being involved in different organizations and so on. Mark's going to see it from a different background because he's newer into this whole world. And I think we can all learn. I mean, I took things away from Matt and Mark's conversation today. It made me, and other comments. I mean, Nicholas Zane posted a comment up today about yesterday's live stream. Took it on board, listened to it. And there's another reason why I created that little video today to kind of say, okay, yeah, you're right. We should be more involved in doing those side of things. Not everybody has that time or the ability, whatever it is, to do it. But if some of us do, if we talk about it, if we give people other ways of actually doing it or show them how they can do it, it makes it better. So I'll take on board any criticism that I think makes sense. Exactly, Matt. We're all learning together. And I think that's the nice thing. Do I agree with everything that everybody says? Absolutely not. But then nobody agrees with everything I say. So it doesn't really matter. As long as we're respectful of what the other person's opinions are, and if we give a differing opinion, we can have a conversation. And that's the whole point of what this is. And the other thing I would say is, Matt, you're always more than welcome to come onto a live stream. I said the same with Mark. Anybody that's involved in this sphere, this WordPress sphere, I'm more than happy to have live streams, to come on to someone else's live stream, or to kind of get a live stream where we all kind of come in with differing opinions. I think there's massive amounts of value, not just for us as the creators, the people that are talking about it, the podcasters and those kinds of things, but also the people that have come on board and watch them, whether they watch them live or they watch them on catch up. And we disseminate this information. We help people make more informed decisions, learn how things work that we may not be privy to. And I think we all ultimately benefit from it. So, Matt, the offer goes out to you at any point. If you ever want to come on a live stream, you're more than welcome. Just hit me up, DM me like we've done in the past. Imran knows he can come on a live stream anytime he wants. Max, if you want to come on a live stream as well, you are always more than welcome. We can make the arrangements and come on to get involved in it. Now, finally, before I do disappear, just bear in mind that I think next week we're going to have the first live stream which is dedicated to the new format we're going to have with myself, Imran, Mark, Jeffrey, and so on. We're not only all of us at the same time. We're going to have the live stream. We're going to talk about different things that are happening in WordPress itself. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. We're aiming for hopefully the first episode next week, and then we'll be doing that once every single month. And like I said, if you want to get involved in that, you can get involved in our communities, get involved via Twitter, via messages, emails, whatever you kind of want to do. If you've got questions, things you want to ask, get involved, become part of the conversation. And anyway, thanks very much for taking the time out of your day today to get involved in today's sort of like last minute live stream. Thanks to everybody that's been in the chat, got involved in the conversation, applied feedback to any of the live streams that I've been involved in or anybody else in the conversation that we've been having over the last couple of days, week or so. It's invaluable. Look after yourself wherever you are in the world. Stay safe.